Welcome to the channel where you get an old man's opinion from a biblical perspective. Whether you always agree with us or not, we would ask that you would take the time to like, to subscribe, to listen, and to comment on our videos. Remember, opinions are a whole lot like nostrils. Almost everybody has at least two or three. With that said, let's get on with today's opinion. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel, whichever it may be. Today, we want to look at the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm just going to maybe try to cover the first two chapters. So let's just start with our reading in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, beginning with verse 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man of all his labor which he has taken under the sun? So stop there for a moment. First, let's talk about who this preacher is. And the word translated preacher there just means someone who is speaking or teaching or preaching. So he's saying he's the preacher, and he says that he's the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Most people, I think, agree that this is probably Solomon writing. He's being the only direct son of David who was king in Jerusalem, although David had grandchildren who were king in Jerusalem. So that some people think maybe it was someone else, but I think the majority of folks believe that this was Solomon speaking, who was considered the wisest man who ever lived. So his first statement is a conclusion that he has reached, and that is vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Well, the word translated vanity here can mean synonyms for it would be empty, useless, or meaningless. So he's saying that everything's empty, everything's useless or meaningless. So he says, and he says, what profit has a man of all this labor which he takes? And if you underline in your Bibles, you need to understand this next phrase, under the sun. It's repeated several times throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. Over and over, he says, this happens, and it happens under the sun. What does that mean? Well, under the sun would be not above the sun, not above the heavens, not in heaven, and not. It means it's trying to tell us that these is how things are in the earthly world, in the world we live in, the then and now. It's without considering above the sun or being in the sun, meaning the Son of God. So verse 3 says, what profit has a man in all his labor which he takes under the sun? And again, remember, his conclusion is that everything is vanity. Then in the next several verses, or this entire chapter, he starts telling you or explaining to you how he reached the conclusion that all is vanity. So let's start and read down 4 through 11. Ecclesiastes 1, 4 through 11. One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises and the sun goes down and hastens to its place where he arose. The wind goes toward the south, then turns about to the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already of old time, which was before us. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after. Let me read that last verse again, verse 11. There is no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come with those that shall come after that. So there's no memory of the past, and there's won't be any remembering of us, and neither will there be any remembering of the people who come after us. Now, obviously, there are historical figures that are written about and told about, but for the most part, things are just easily and quickly forgotten. I mean, some of you, I'm sure, was alive when 9/11 happened, just about 20 years ago, roughly. How much of that is already forgotten? The fear of that day, or what you were doing. The people who were born since then, it's like ancient past to them, and it slowly becomes forgotten. Most of us don't remember our great-great-grandparents. The world just seems to keep rolling along. He points out in these other previous verses, as one generation passes away, another generation cometh, but the earth just keeps on going. It's like we think we're going to change the world, but the world just keeps on going, and each generation passes away. Remember the old Stadler song where he talks about all the Stadler Brothers song, where they talk about we thought we'd change the world, but Billy works down at the used car lot, and Joe drives a dump truck, and Bill's a lawyer, and Susan works down at the bank, and we all just fall into life, and life just grinds along. Years come and years go. And so it just points out the monotony of all of life and how it continues. Life's circumstances. When he looks at all this, he just looks at it and says, it's all vanity. I mean, what are we doing? Because, and I'm going to say this over and over, if we look at life and the world from just under the sun, just a worldly standpoint, not considering God and hereafter, a creator, then it is all vanity and wasted if we just return to the dust and go away. Let's read on a little farther, verse 12, and reading through verse 18. The preacher was king over Israel in Jerusalem. And I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under the heaven. Under the heaven meaning the same thing as under the sun. Verse 13 again. And I gave my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under heaven. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with my own heart, saying, Lo, I am come to great estate, and have gotten more wisdom than all they that have been before me in Jerusalem. Yea, my heart had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increaseth knowledge increaseth sorrow. So he says in verse 13, I gave my heart to search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under the heavens. So he gave his heart to searching out, using the wisdom that God had given him. He was a wise man. He says, I'm going to search out and find out what, because well, first off, let's understand what wisdom is. And I realize this might not be everyone's definition, but I believe it's pretty close. Wisdom is the ability to discern or judge what is true or right or lasting. Let me read that again. Wisdom is the ability to discern or judge what is true, right, or lasting. It's like having great insight. Now, some people equate it with knowledge, and but you have to have, when you have knowledge of something, you make wise decisions because you're able to discern and judge what's right and wrong. But to have the gift of wisdom is different than just having a lot of knowledge. Again, just use Solomon as an example. He had lots and lots of knowledge. He was extremely wise, but he didn't always do what was wise. He could discern what was right and wrong, but he still did what was wrong. A lot of times, having all those wives wasn't right. Bringing idols, Solomon brought idols into the house of God because he married women that weren't Israelites, that were not God's people. And so he did a lot of things, but he was the wisest man who lived. So that means that he could discern and know that that was the wrong thing to do. Did them anyway. Sort of like some of us that aren't so wise. But he used that wisdom concerning, and so to search out by wisdom concerning all things that are done under the sun. He searched everything to see what was right, what was wrong, what's a good idea, what's a bad idea. This sore travail hath God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. He saw it almost as a curse that God gives it to man to try to search out and decide what's right and wrong. You watch the animals in the field, they're not trying to figure out what's right and wrong. They're just looking for the next blade of grass to eat. Right? They're not sitting in concern, well, is this moral? Is this immoral? Will this work better than that? This sore travail has been given to man. Let's see here. Verse 14, I've seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, it's all vanity and vexation. So it's all meaningless. Vanity. It's all meaningless. It's all empty. And it's vexation of the spirit. What does vexation mean? It means to greatly trouble. It's greatly troubling in the spirit. It troubles man's spirit. Verse 17, and I gave my heart to know wisdom, and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is vexation of spirit. So he gave his heart to understand and to discern about wisdom. And he tried folly and foolishness. We don't use the word foolishness here, but madness and folly. And then he looked at that and he said, that's empty. That's empty. And it only vexes the spirit, troubles the spirit. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increases knowledge increases sorrow. It's like the more you know, the sadder he became. Again, this is proving his conclusion. This is how he reached his conclusion, looking at increase of knowledge. Let's look now at chapter 2. Again, Solomon speaking says, I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore, enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. So he says, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I said in my heart, I'm just going to have fun, party, and have a good time. Therefore, enjoy pleasure, and behold, and so, have you ever known someone that all they want to do is party all the time? The next party, the next thing, which is everything's a big party. How many of those people are empty, living a meaningless life? And at what point do they sit back and say, I've done all that. Now what? The meaninglessness of continual partying. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what does it accomplish? What doeth it, rather? Verse 3, I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom. So he sought in his heart to give himself to wine. So he thought, I'll try intoxication, right? I want to try wine. And all the time, he acquainting his heart with wisdom. The purpose of this was to discern if this was the right way for man to be, to just intoxicate yourself so that the worries and cares don't bother you. So let me read verse 3 again of chapter 2. I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold of folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. So I said, I'm trying to figure out what man should do in order to be happy. What should he do under the sun all the days of their life, so that they might find happiness? Can it be found in wisdom? Can true happiness be found in mirth? He says. Let's see if I find the right word here. To folly, to party, to folly, to have laughter, to try wine or intoxication. I try all those things to see what a man ought to do in his search for happiness under the sun all the days of their lives. And remember the conclusion in verse 2 of chapter 1. Vanity, vanity. All is vanity, says the preacher. Verses 4 through 11 of chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes. I made me great works. I built me houses. I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small, cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasures of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and I increased more, and all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatsoever mine eyes desired I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion for all my labor. Then I looked on the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. Read that list. It sounds like an accomplished American, right? We could pick Donald Trump as a person who's built great works, built houses, right? Or anyone who's successful. Just read this. He did great works. He built him houses. He planted vineyards. He made gardens and orchards. He made pools of water to water and grow trees. He had servants and maidens, and he had servants born in his house. So he had servants everywhere. He had great possessions. He's small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before him. So he had more riches than anyone. He said he gathered silver and gold and peculiar treasures of kings and of the provinces. He had men singers, women singers. He could have Taylor Swift come and sing. He had men singers, women singers. the delights of the sons of man and musical instruments of all sorts. He had it all. So he brought in entertainment. He had lots of money. Greatly accomplished. Verse 9, he says, I was great. I increased more than all that came before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me. I was still smart, could discern right and wrong. Verse 10, and whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. There was nothing that he wanted that he kept from him. If he wanted it, he got it. He was rich. He was smart. He was accomplished. If there's no pleasure, there's no item, if I want it, I'll get it. He says, I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. And then he looked, he says, in verse 11, and all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, it was all vanity, emptiness. It was all meaningless. And it was troubling to the spirit, a vexation of spirit. And there was no profit under the sun. How many people work their whole lives buying new cars, building new homes, great accomplishments in business, intelligent man, and at some point stop and look at all they've got, and they realize there's really no meaning in it. Solomon, and this is just the beginning, we'll cover more in a future video, is beginning to see that happiness, fulfillment will not and cannot be found under the sun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. We'll return in a few days, hopefully maybe next week, with cover another chapter or two of Ecclesiastes. Please remember, if you like this content, subscribe, hit the like button, and we'll see you again soon.